Here we discuss whether international developmental NGOs are a new form of colonialism. What is an NGO? The term non-governmental organization was created in Article 71 of the Charter of the newly formed United Nations in 1945. An NGO can be any kind of organization, provided that it is independent from government influence and is not for profit. It can be funded by citizens, foundations, businesses, or private persons. What is colonialism? It is the policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers, and exploiting it economically. The question we are exploring today is, are international NGOs new colonialists? Here come the numbers. There are an estimated 10 million non-governmental organizations worldwide. If NGOs were a country, they would have the 5th largest economy in the world. In Europe, NGOs give more than 53 billion euros annually. Nearly 1 in 3 people worldwide donated to charity in 2015. NGOs do short-term good. In cases of emergencies, people are fed, housed, and starvation is averted. Long-term, NGOs may cause more harm than good. NGOs in developing countries receive most of the aid from the US and the EU, removing the responsibility of action and funding from the local government. The presence of so many NGOs, each with huge budgets and foreign funding, creates a distorting effect on the economy. The large influx of rich Westerners creates an artificial boom in the economy. For the local small business owner, recruiting and retaining qualified personnel becomes more expensive as the NGO's pay scale doesn't reflect the local reality. NGOs depend on struggling countries to survive. In some cases, they exaggerate the need for aid. This results in a local NGO elite. Like European empires once dictated policies across their colonies, new colonialists direct development strategies and government policies for their hosts. But though they hold society together in weak states, their presence deepens the dependency on outsiders. Seeing jobs that need to be done, the new colonialists simply go to work without the cooperation of states. This is good for the family whose house needs rebuilding or a child who needs vaccinations, but it can be a blow to the authority of an already weak government, and it may do nothing to ensure that a state will be able to provide for its citizens in the future. And as these groups deepen their presence in weak states, they often bleed the country of local talent. The salaries they offer are not only better and the work more effective, but there are often no comparable opportunities for well-educated locals in the country's civil service or private sector. Sir Nick Young, the CEO of the British Red Cross, earned £184,000 in 2013. Justin Forsyth, CEO of Save the Children, received £163,000 last year. Here are the 5 big things international NGOs are blamed for. Hogging resources, claiming partnerships with domestic NGOs but not executing them, poaching staff from domestic NGOs, being brand obsessed, and failing to do themselves out of a job. So let's talk about the current crisis in Syria. Several major international NGOs are operating at limited capacity after more than $230 million in funding was suspended as part of a major fraud investigation by the US government. Another blow to the aid operations' ability to respond to the crisis in Aleppo, as many as 7 NGOs face US funding freezes. In some cases, staff are alleged to have colluded with suppliers and subcontractors to rip off agencies. NGO CEOs are getting richer, while millions of dollars of donated money is not getting to the poor. Do you think this sounds like colonialism?
If NGOs are so bad, why do we have them? The United Nations estimates that about 795 million people of the 7.3 billion people in the world were suffering from chronic undernourishment in 2014 to 2016. Every 3.6 seconds, a person dies of hunger. 75% of them are children. In 2015, more than 65 million people have had to abandon their homes because of war, crime, political unrest, and natural disasters, many losing everything they own. Every day, 1,400 children die from diarrhea caused by dirty water. This is just a proportion of the 4 million deaths from water-related diseases and poor sanitation each year. International NGOs address these humanitarian issues. When men, women, and children are trapped in the midst of war, international NGOs rush to zones of peace for the delivery of humanitarian aid. When those displaced by natural and man-made disasters become vulnerable from the ravages of disease, international NGOs are there to protect and treat them. When children are uprooted by calamity and destruction, international NGOs provide education and shelter. And when it's time to begin rebuilding, international NGOs are there, ensuring that the recovery process has a firm and stable footing. From the population displacements caused by war, weather, and natural disasters, to the impact of such disruptions on health, education, and even basic shelter, international NGOs are there, making a difference. In 2015-2016, Oxfam alone provided 5.4 million people with improved access to clean water. 1.5 million people benefited from improved sanitation facilities, greatly reducing the spread of disease. 1.7 million people benefited from the distribution of food, cash, or vouchers, enabling them to survive a crisis. So are international NGOs guilty as charged? Yes, but they are not always to blame, and there are some signs of positive change. Organisations have signed a Charter of Change to compensate local organisations who have lost staff. On branding, many organisations came together under Action 2015 without their own logos, and there are many other examples of good. For example, as the conflict in Syria continues to tear the country apart, millions of people are left on the edge, fearful for their lives, fearful for the future, fearful for how they will survive even if they escape the airstrikes and fighting. The scale of the need for NGOs' aid in Syria is staggering. Here are some of the shocking facts. The number of people affected and the level of need make it one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. This young girl's father died in an airstrike. Their home was also destroyed. They no longer have a provider for their family and are dependent on aid to survive. Despite the controversies associated with international NGOs, the United Nations projects that at least 87 million people in dozens of countries will require humanitarian aid next year. Without international NGOs, who will help them?